Good morning, family. Before we get into the message, I want you to hear the story of two of our very faithful members, personal friends of mine, Adriana and Joseph Carrillo. I can't roll the L's, so is that good enough?
It's good.
Because of what I want to share in just a few moments, I want them to tell me the story that I heard recently from them, and I said, our church has got to hear this. Let's go back 20 years. Joseph, you guys were a couple.
Yes.
But you were totally in the world. Even though you gave your heart to Jesus at 17.
17 years old in this church.
You were lost.
I was the prodigal times 20.
You were a prodigal.
Yes.
Doing the whole thing.
You name it.
You guys had some children.
Yes.
The child we want to talk about today is 11 years old. We're going to go back 7 years. You guys were separated. You were with another woman, but you asked Adriana, can I have the boys? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I called her out of the blue and I asked if I can have the boys to take them swimming because they had been asking me if we could go swimming for a while. So I said, Adriana, can I please have them for the day? And she said, yes, just be careful. And I said, no problem, I got this. So I picked them up and I took them to Blackberry Farm, which is a local swimming pool that is in the valley. And everything was great, I'm just having a great time. My kids are having fun, I'm on top of the world, so I thought. And I'm feeding my boys lunch and Vincent says, Daddy, can I go back into the swimming pool? The four lifeguards are around the swimming pool.
So he just turned 4.
He had just turned 4. And it's not more than 5 minutes later, Noah's running up the hill.
Noah's about 6 at the time?
Yes, he's 6 years old. Daddy, Vincent, it's Vincent. And I said, oh my goodness. And everybody's jumping out of the pool. So I run down the hill as fast as I can. And my son's at the bottom of the pool. So, I dropped to my knees and I screamed as loud as I could. I just went into shock. They actually had to hold me down because I just started wailing and flailing. They fished him out with those, with the pool skimmers, and it seemed like 5-10 minutes. They finally brought him out, and I'm on my knees. They put him on my lap. I'm sitting down, and he's blue. So, I'm freaking out. They're trying to resuscitate him. They call the ambulance, and it was a nightmare.
Now, how'd you hear about this?
I was at work, but
at the Valley Fair Mall over in
right.
Stevens Creek.
Yeah, Valley Fair.
Where you still work.
Yeah, where I still work, been there. But I'm gonna back up just a tiny bit because before he picked up the kids, or I had just dropped off the kids and I was walking into work and I found on the coin a coin, John 3:16.
So it was a coin that said John 3:16?
Yeah, and it said, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son.
Keep it?
I kept it.
Okay.
I kept it, and we weren't going to church at the time. We were lost.
You're out there in the world.
Yeah, and it just spoke to me. It just spoke to me, and it was just pulling on me. And I kept it, and I walked into work like nothing. Carried on, and around 4 p.m. is when I received the phone call
From Valley Med.
Yeah, telling me to get to the hospital. Because
and you actually, how did you get to the hospital?
I ran.
You ran.
I ran.
That's a little bit of a ways.
Yeah, I have no idea how I.
In your high heels, you ran.
Yeah, I grabbed the phone and I slammed
Adrenaline's
it down
kicking in.
Took off.
You got to the hospital, and what happened?
Well, I got to the hospital and they let me in to see Vince. He was laying on the bed and he was completely blue, wet, soaked, smelled of chlorine, had tubes everywhere, machines going off everywhere. And the doctor told me I had 5 minutes to try and resuscitate him, or they were going in. And when they go in internally, it's not good for a child. So he told me, you have 5 minutes, try and reach him, try and wake him. I started yelling at him. I started saying, Golden Brown Bear, that was his nickname, wake up, wake up, Golden Brown Bear. And he would not wake up, and I remembered the coin.
You had it on you?
I had it on. I was in my purse. I grabbed it out. I put it in my hand, and and I said it out loud in front of everyone that was there. I said, Jesus, if you're real, wake up my son. Wake him up. So I put my head on Vincent's head, and I just closed my eyes, and I said, in the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, wake up, son. Wake up, Vince. And he just popped open his eyes.
Wow.
And he looked at me, and the first thing he said was, Mama, where were you? And I'm already feeling guilty, and I said, I'm sorry, son, I was at work. He put his arms around my neck, and then he just said, it's okay, Mommy, it's okay, because Jesus, and he put his little fingers on his nose and said, saved me.
So he said, Jesus
saved me.
plugged his nose.
Yeah, and then I said, what? Everybody was like, what? And everybody was crying. The ambulance workers, the doctors, the nurses. He was.
Now, how did he know it was Jesus?
He said, the man with the markers.
The man with the markers.
He held my nose, Mama. Jesus saved me.
He just turned 4 years old.
Just turned 4 years old.
7 years later, he's still saying that.
7 years later,
years old.
yeah, he's still saying that.
That led, of course, to a new life for you.
Absolutely.
Now, when you heard about this, racked with guilt,
I was
What happened?
racked with guilt that day. I said, I will never do this again. I'm going to change. That day was it. Total transformation. I'm done. Lo and behold, I was out to the races a week later.
so the addictions, the partying,
Yeah.
had a grip on you.
Oh yeah, it did.
Pulled you right back
It
in.
pulled me right back in. Not even a week later, I said, I'm out of here. I go, it's not about you. It's about me. I said, it's about the Joey show, and I left the house right after he just got out of the hospital.
But a few weeks later,
A few weeks later,
you had your near-death experience.
Oh yeah, I actually had a heart attack in my room because I had taken so many drugs and so much alcohol in my system that I stopped breathing in my room. And I was like, Adriana, help me, I'm dying. And she said, I can't help you. She said, cry out to God. So all I could do was fall forward because I was going into paralysis. And I fell forward and I said, Jesus, save me. And I fell asleep instantly fell asleep. I woke up an hour later, not even with a headache. Didn't even need an aspirin. And I literally should have went to the hospital because I had so much stuff in me.
That got you guys back to church, and one of our pastors, because you were still done with this guy.
Yeah.
Too much history.
Yeah, it was
But one of our pastors said, give him a year
Yeah.
and see what Jesus can do. And here you are, serving God together. Like two of the coolest people in our church, by the way. Now, family, we're going to get into the Word right now, and I wanted you to hear this testimony because I'm going to talk for about 20 minutes, part one anyway, of how to hang on like you did, even if it hurts and all your senses are screaming at you, this isn't going to work, it's over, and yet a mother's love, a coin, a John 3:16 coin you found that day, and kind of a renewed faith in Jesus.
Absolutely.
And
Sold out.
here we are.
Here we are.
Let's have some church.